Students, most welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Krishnendu Ray, teaching in the Department of Ancient Indian History and Culture, University of Calcutta, Kolkata. Today, we are concentrating on the sources of economic history of early India. In this connection, we shall concentrate on three major points. Number one, what sources are, what are the categories of sources, and thirdly, how these sources are helpful for understanding the economic history of early India. Let us see the objectives of this module. It aims to study the various source materials and their importance in the study of economic history of India up to 1200 CE. Now, introduction. History informs that human beings have taken part in different activities in order to living in the world from as early as the Stone Age. They have changed their surroundings, conditions, and things so as to secure their physical existence on the earth. In doing so, they have acquired various experiences. These are preserved in several forms of things or traces. We have archaeological artifacts, wise northern black polished ware, red and black ware, etc., and many others. They have written their experiences according to the needs of their learning. So, students, the written materials together with archaeological artifacts constitute sources. These provide information about their living, thinking, expressing thoughts, ideas, fighting, passing social as well as family life, providing food, worshipping deities. Sources wise, the Vedas, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, the Dharmashastras, the Arthashastra of Kautilya, ancient monuments, inscriptions and coins show working relations among them human beings. Accordingly, they have carried on their activities in society. They have brought about changes in society so as to suit their purposes of living through ages. The historian delves into historical phenomena by understanding those changes through times. Now, by this time, students, we have learned that human beings, in order to live their lives, have acquired various experiences, and according to the needs of their living, they have written only those things which they have felt necessary to preserve, and the media that they had used for writing were stones, other objects, manuscripts in which they had preserved their experiences. And the historian reads these sources and try to extract how those people had passed their lives. So, naturally, there are many sources. Let us come to know about the categories of sources. As I told you earlier, the second major point. Let us see. Categories of sources. We have two categories of sources, literary and archaeological ones. Literary sources, two categories again. Indigenous sources, non-indigenous sources. The indigenous literary sources include Vedic literature, Jaina and Buddhist texts, the Jatakas, epics, Ramayana and Mahabharata, secular literature, Dharmashastras, Manusmriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti, etc. Arthashastra of Kautilya, Puranas, classical Sanskrit literature, creative literature wise Dashakumara Charita, Kiritarjaniyam, Mitchakotika. Now, the second category, non-indigenous sources. These include the travels of Faxian, Xuanzang of Siuki, Megasthenes Indica, Diodorus Bibliothecus Historicus, Strabos Geographicon, the Periplus Mari Erythrae, Pliny's Naturalis Historia, Claudius Ptolemy's Geographicae Hupigesis, etc. Non-indigenous sources also include the Arabic and Persian sources like Hudud al-Alam, Al-Biruni's Kitab-ul-Hind, letters of medieval Jewish traders by S.D. Goitein, etc. Now, by this time, students, we have learned that how so many categories of sources, literary sources, indigenous as well as non-indigenous. Let us so see another category of sources, archaeological sources. What are these? Archaeological sources. Archaeological sources include inscriptions, coins, artifacts from exploration and excavation, art and architecture. These sources provide information about understanding the economic life of the early Indians from as early as the pre-Harappan days. It should be studied through the following chronological stages. Students, in this connection, we should take note of the fact that the sources, both indigenous, including non-indigenous, as well as archaeological, including inscriptions, coins, etc. All these sources are equally important for understanding the economic activities of the early Indians. So, for understanding this clearly, let us go by chronological stages so that we can have a comprehensive idea about how the early Indians had passed their economic lives. Let us see the chronological stages. Sources up to 200 BCE. Sources 200 BCE to 300 CE. Sources 300 CE to 600 CE. Sources 600 CE to 1200 CE. Now let us go to sources up to 200 CE. How these are important? As I told you, the last major point or the third major point is how these sources are helping us to know the economic history of early India. Let us see chronological stages. First, excavations at Bagor, Mohagara, Koldihawa, etc. bring to light the hunter and food gatherer people. They entered the agricultural life. The Mehergarh excavations show matured material culture of the people. The people used precious stones, vice, tarpus, bead, conch shells, lapis lazuli. The matured material culture indicative of the notions of the urban economy. The scholarly studies show the developed Indus Valley civilization dated to about 2350 to 1750 BCE. This civilization spread over a large area bounded by Shutkajendor on the west, Daimabad on the south, Alamgirpur on the east, and Shautugai on the north. The Harappans developed artisanal industry, urbanization, bead making, great bath, granary, wide roads, well-distributed trains, trade linkages with the Deccan, Saurashtra, Western India, Afghanistan, Central and West Asia. The people of the Harappan culture maintained overland communication. They used wheeled carts. They used watercrafts. The people of the Rigvedic days were familiar with Brikshachedaka, Rathokaro, Charmamna, Vashas, Adhivasha, Karnashabhana, Hiranyakarna, Khadi, Karmara, Govishti, Brihi, Java, etc. The people of the Rigveda were mainly pastoral. They were becoming aware of the importance of agriculture. The later Vedic texts show that the people knew the words like Godhuma, Kinaso, Sita, the use of iron, Nibi, also artisanal words like Koulala, Monikaro, Ishukaro, the Dhivara, Surakaro, etc. People also developed trade and commerce. People knew the words Bonij, Samudra. People maintained connection, communication. People prayed for safe journeys to far off places. Buddhist texts refer to Kosi, that is Krishi. The farmer made the cultivable land Sukattam, Sukrishtam, that is suitably cultivated, and Sumottikam, that is Sumittika, that is they prepared the soil for cultivating the crop they wanted to cultivate. The Jaina and Buddhist literatures were against the slaughter of animals because the cattle were important for the development of agriculture. By now, students, we have been clear about how our ancestors had performed their economic activities ranging from agricultural production to industrial production. Even they also developed certain artisanal skills also in order to cater to the services of the people in different ways, in different sectors. Let us see another part. In Buddhist texts, Kasi, Gorakshaka, Goraksha, that is cattle keeping, were important livelihoods. People resorted to artisanal industries from 600 BCE onwards. The people had also taken to sea trade. The words Samudra Bonijya, Samudikayo Navo, seagoing vessel, are known. The people were known to the city. The Arthashastra provides information about the economic activities of the people. The state had control over mining, shipping, textiles, and wine industries. Private entrepreneurs were also encouraged. Humans maintained communication with others. The people resorted to the riverways and land routes for communication between Pratishtanapura and Savasti. The road also included Mahishmati, Ujjaini, Vidisha, Banasabhaya, the port of Bharugacho, Kausambi, Tamralipti, Pataliputra, Patala, etc. and also went as far as Pushkalavati. Bharugacho was connected by road with Pushkalavati. Megasthenes and Ashoka's Lagman edicts referred to a royal highway, Karopathy. So, students, by this time, we have learned that the early Indians had not only developed agricultural practices, production, but also produced surplus through their different forms of production, including industrial ones. At the same time, we have also learned they resorted to trading activities, particularly sea trade. Remember one thing, when we get some references from literary sources or inscriptional sources, it means when these were recorded, this shows that these activities must have been done, must have been performed in reality. And that's why those activities, according to their necessities or needs, were coined or recorded in the concerned source or sources. Let us see, as I told you, chronologically, next stage. Sources 200 BCE to 300 CE. What we get during this phase from the sources. Remember, again, both literary as well as archaeological sources are important for this case also, this phase also. Let us see. Both indigenous sources like Jatakas, etc., and non-indigenous sources like Megasthenes Indica contain information about the economic developments. Pliny, the Mahabharata, Milinda Pangha, and the Jaina text Uttaradhyana Sutra refer to crops, viz. Jawar, Bajra, Kolai, mustard seeds, etc. Dharmashastra texts refer to the importance of irrigation project. Both epigraphic and archaeological artifacts refer to the use of well, pond and canal for irrigation, for example, Sudarshan Lake. The Sringaberapura excavations, it is in Allahabad, refer to the preservation of river water for irrigation. The Buddhist texts Mahavastu Abodhana and Milinda Pangha mention the artisanal activities. Donative inscriptions from Shachi, Bharhut, Karla, Bhaja, Pitalkhora, Amravati, etc. support this. The Periplus Mari Erythrae refers to the textiles industries at Tagara and Pratishtanapur. Ptolemy's geography mentions a diamond mine at Kosha on the east of the Narmada River. Artisanal industries were organized. Professional organizations were Sreni, Ganu, Pugo, Shangha. The traders were called Sharthabaho, Sreshthi, etc. The Periplus and Ptolemy refer to flourishing ports, viz. Barbaricum, Barugaza, Mujiris, Kolchi, Massalia, and Ganges, etc. Both the literary and archaeological sources report Indo-Roman trade. In this regard, coins also help us a lot. The Kushanas, Shakatrapas, Shatavahanas issued gold coins, gold, silver, and copper coins. The Nagas, Mitras, Malavas also issued coins. Students, in this connection, we should keep in mind that the people of early India developed their trading activities. And in that connection, they also used coins. And in respect of coins, we should take note of the fact that coins are so important, it requires further detailed study. But in this case, we should keep in mind two major points. Number one, coins study has two major parts. First of all, how it is made, what is its shape, how thickness it is, how thick it is, etc., etc. And what is the weight of this coin? All these are called, together constitute the metrology of coins. Another part is, which is very, very historical, is how coins are used and what is or are the purpose or purposes for which a coin or coins are being used, and who are or were the authorities to issue coins, whatever the coins, gold, silver or copper. Who enjoyed the authority to use or issue the coins? Let us go to another part. Excavations at Taxila, Mathura, Chandraketugad, Nivasa and Satanikota, Nagarjunikonda provide welcome light on the process of urbanization in early India during this phase. The people also maintained overland connection with distant places. Recent archaeological evidences like inscriptions, rock art from Karakoram highway, sites like Hunja, Gilgit now inform of the existence of a highway that connected Bactria, Kabul, Pushkalabati and Taxila. Students, in this connection, we should keep in mind that coins as well as this other sources from which we can get the required information about the economic activities of early Indians are not only particular coins or particular literary or indigenous sources or non-indigenous sources, but also the artifacts as well as the road that the people had used in their economic transactions. This road is also important for consideration or considering for understanding this economic history of early India. And that's why we have mentioned the source road that they maintained for connection. Let us see another stage. Sources 300 CE to 600 CE. In this case, we learn that Harshacharita refers to paddy, wheat, sugarcane products produced at Sthanishwar. Raghuvamsha mentions the land of Pundra with good production of sugarcane. Amarkosha refers to types of land, that is Urbara, Aprahato, etc. Gupta inscriptions from early Bengal refer to Bapokhetra, Aprahato, Khilokhetra, etc. Different and land measurements like Dranabapo, Kullabapo, etc. from the Gupta epigraphs. Bakatoga inscriptions very useful for understanding agricultural conditions of the Deccan during the period. These land grant records were called Agroharo. The artisans like Kongshokaro, organizations like Nigamo from both epigraphic as well as literary compositions like Amarkosha known. Narada Smriti, Brihaspati Smriti contain information about the professional organizations of the period. Students, in this connection, we should take note of the term Agroharo. It is very, very important term, and it is very, very figuring in the context of early Indian economic history right from 300 CE. Maybe in the days prior to, but we find records from 300 CE. Agroharo, it is simply rent-free land grant to or a part of the village or a piece of land being granted to some authority, usually Brahman, but we have evidences that it was also given to Vaishya. But those examples are very few. Mainly or usually we get references to Agroharas to Brahmanas. So that's why we also include this particular term for understanding early Indian economic history, because it is also very, very important. So important that southern India, Brahmadeo Agroharo, in North India also we get reference to Brahmadeo Agroharo, Kulo Agroharo, like this. So important. Let us see other part. Gold, silver and copper coins helpful for understanding economic activities of the early Indians of this phase. Epigraphic records contain references to taxes, Koro, Uporikoro, Halikokoro, Bhago, Hiranno and Udrongo, and also the concerned officers like Udrongiko, those who were associated with the collection of these taxes were called revenue collectors or officers, Udrongiko, those who collected Udrongo, like that. Mahabharata mentions a road that connected Mathura, Malwa, Mandhata, Poitan. As I told you earlier, the roads are also important. In this connection, we are also seeing that a road was used by the people in order to carry on their economic transactions between different places. Let us see. Sources from 600 CE to 1200 CE. What we get from these sources? Several copper plate inscriptions helpful for understanding the economic history of this phase. Inscriptions refer to crops, Gubako, Narikela, etc. Inscriptions also mention the use of a large plough in cultivation, the husking pedal used known from the Shadukti Karnamrita, Rajatarangini, Shubhashita Ratnakosha, Kuttani Matam, etc. The Krishi Parashara is an important text on agriculture. literary and inscriptional references to Orogatto used for irrigation. Market centers like Oddo, Sate, Penta in the Deccan, Hotto or Hottika, Mondopika in northern India, Nagaram in South India. Students, in this connection, we should take note of the word Orogatto. It is still in use in our days also, particularly in Rajasthan area. I have seen also in other UP and Bihar areas. It is a weight lifting, a bucket which is used to lift water from your well to irrigate the field. So it was also used by the early Indians in this phase, to which we get references from different sources. Let us see other part. Arabic sources, al-Masudi, al-Idrisi, etc. inform overseas trade both in the west and east of India. Coins, cowries, churni, metal dust used in trade and commerce. Students, in this connection, we should take note of the fact that not only coins our early Indians used, but also they used cowries. Still, these are in use, not in economic transactions, but on auspicious occasions, but still is in use. Cowries and churni, metal dust. Certainly, they were these coins, this also a form of coin used in order to carry on small scale economic transactions, as in our days also we use small scale currency, 1 rupee or 5 rupees, etc., etc. They also used in their form, as we also use in our days. Let us see. Inscriptions and archaeological records refer to urban centers, Tattanandapur, Siardoni, etc. And we get references to other urban centers also. Epigraphic literary sources, including Arabic and Persian sources, refer to categories of merchants, Vanjara, Boidehoko, Sarthabaho, Sreshthin, Baddhabhavahari, and Novittako. Students, in this connection, we should take note of the fact that in our days, we have different categories of merchants. A peddler, also a merchant. Trader, who is trading. For example, on some toffees or chocolates. He is also purchases and sells. If purchase and sell is the prime notion of a trader, then he is also a trader. From this to most important trader or business tycoon or business magnate, he is also conducting a business network, not directing purchasing or selling goods like this, but he is also carrying on business network. So he is also a businessman. So between this man, this business tycoon, and this peddler, we have a number of merchants. So in our days, as in our days we see different categories of merchants, in their days also they developed different categories of merchants. They categorized merchants in different categories. And that's why we get references to different categories of merchants in sources. Let us see another part, art and architecture. In this connection, we should take note of the fact that human beings always live in two stages. Number one, in the physical stage, where they require food, shelter and clothing, and at the mental level they also live where they practice songs, painting, drawing, gossiping, reading texts or storybooks, etc., etc. Like hobbies. In this way, our early Indians also passed their leisurely time, producing at the same time very, very important art objects which also reflect their economic activities. So, this is how art and architectural objects are also important for understanding early Indian economic history up to 1200 CE. Let us see that part. Art and architecture. Nihar Ranjan Ray, A.K. Kumaraswamy, S.K. Saraswati, and many others inform about temples and their styles, viz. Nagara, Dravida, and Beshara. The images of the gods and goddesses, painting and sculptures, stone, metal, and terracotta used as the media, visual arts produced with regard to the surrounding contexts. Naturally, these art and architectural things reflect the ways of seeing the surrounding conditions. Students, in this connection, we should remember the ways of seeing. I have put it in quote unquote because this is partly the name of a book, and that's why I have put it in quote. So, what is the way of seeing? Whatever we do, whatever we write, whatever we produce, say, for example, an image or a sculpture, whatever we do as we think, so we do, as we see the surroundings, our surroundings, so we think, in the same way we do. So this is how these reflect how we have seen our surroundings. In the similar way, our early Indians also saw their surroundings. And the ways, how do I know? How do we know how they saw their surroundings? These are the visual arts, art pieces, through which we can imagine how they had perceived their surroundings. So, by now, what we have learned? Let us go to summary. By now, it has become clear that these literary and archaeological sources are important enough to provide welcome light to the economic activities of early Indians. Different sources together can help us to explain the economic history of a people of a particular region during a particular period. The use of sources depends on what question the historian raises. Accordingly, she or he finds out new sources if necessary or evaluates the known sources in order to find out the answer to his or her question. The historian makes sources work for solving the problem she or he deals with. So far, as much as possible, we have tried to cover entire early Indian history up to 1200 CE in the light of different sources. Obviously, we have not been able to put all the details. If one is interested to know more about these activities, economic activities of early Indians, then please refer to e-text. Thank you all.